Podcaster and former Bravo TV star Jennifer Welch sparked outrage from conservatives over comments that she made about people celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
In a recent interview of her podcast called I've Had It, Welch blasted Democratic leaders, including Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, saying that voters on the left are gravitating more towards politicians like Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani. As an example, she played a clip from a No Kings protest where one woman said she was glad that Charlie Kirk died, and Welch appeared to argue that Dems should cater more to these voters.
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with the or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Kudos to Bernie, to AOC, to Zoran. And that woman out in somewhere middle America saying, Charlie Kirk, he was a racist, he was a piece of shit. There are so many more of us than there are of them. And these Democrats that continue to play patty cake with corporations and lobbyists, nobody wants that.
That clip went viral online with many on the right blasting Welch's rhetoric. Conservative podcaster and YouTuber Benny Johnson writes, Barack Obama has even appeared on her show. Will he speak out against this dangerous rhetoric? These threats are being broadcast, amplified, and normalized to millions of viewers. This cannot be ignored. Accountability is required.
Meanwhile, Oscar-winning actress Jamie Lee Curtis also recently drew headlines for comments she made about Charlie Kirk. In the days following Kirk's death, Curtis said she disagreed strongly with his ideas but offered praise to him for being a man of faith. Those remarks sparked backlash from some on the left, and in an interview with Variety magazine this week, Curtis clarified her comments, saying, quote, an excerpt of it mistranslated what I was saying as I wished him well, like I was talking about him in a very positive way, which I wasn't. I was simply talking about his faith in God.
I can't believe she had to feel the need to apologize for that. The Jennifer Welch clip is deeply disturbing. We didn't play it, but before she makes those remarks, it's a woman, a middle-aged woman at a No Kings protest being interviewed by this very MAGA girl who interviews people at protests. I forget. I know who she is. I forget what her association is. She's interviewing this protester, and the protester says straightforwardly she's glad Charlie Kirk is dead. You know, it suggests that maybe he did deserve it. Suggests to the person interviewing that maybe she'd like her to die too. It's really gross comments. I'm not for necessarily just picking random protesters and maligning all protesters because someone said something nutty. But Jennifer Welch selected this person to be celebrated and said the Democratic establishment should be more like this. That is crazy to me. She cackles with glee at the idea of this woman expressing a joy in someone dying. I don't. You can criticize Charlie Kirk. I don't even care if you say he's an essay piece of whatever she said. Fine, that's your opinion. But I do think it's really reprehensible to applaud his death and to say that Democrats should be more like the woman who applauded his death. What is her problem?
Agree with you 100%. I think that no disrespect to her, but I certainly don't get my political information or news from former Bravo stars. Again, no disrespect to her, but that's not where I pull sources of information as like...
She's kind of a big deal these days.
I know, but as the North Star for me, that's not where I would go for. Yeah. If I'm being entertained, and even when people who are in entertainment step into spaces where they get inappropriate, I'll always condemn those comments. That's not, like I said, not appropriate. But I think it's a reach to ask for anybody who's ever been a guest on a podcast to then apologize for the behavior of the podcast host.
I don't care about
Obama
that.
has nothing to do with this. Ridiculous. That's random. Fine. Now, if I pull anything, I put to the side, I condemn everything she said about pulling that protester and celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I made my stance clear, and we talked about that for weeks after he was killed. But if you pull anything that she said that makes sense that she spoke to, was that she's calling on Democratic leaderships to stop only looking at the historical figures in the party, the same old people that have been doing the same thing over and over again, like Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that part.
And so I think that that's the part that I would point to, is that she's bringing up a point that I think a lot of voters are bringing up, while at the same time people like Hakeem Jeffries were hesitant. It took a long time to just say, I support Mamdani. Everyone else was looking like, oh, that looks like a cool race in New York. Maybe it wouldn't work for Texas. Maybe it wouldn't work for Dallas. Obviously, it wouldn't work over there. But in New York, it looks like it works for them. And at least he's bringing policies and solutions to the table. And so instead of the sleight of hand of just calling Mamdani names and finding cheap shots to say at him, he's actually naming things that some people think are unrealistic, but actually naming things that he thinks could be accomplished to bring down cost of groceries and other things in New York. And so that's admirable in her mind. And I agree with that part of her commentary. But in the beginning, when she's talking about anything that celebrates someone who is celebrating a murder, obviously we've already clarified that multiple times. That's wildly inappropriate.
This Jennifer Welch character. So I didn't know who this was until very recently. She's gotten on my radar now. I think she's kind of having a moment. I'm now seeing her clips everywhere. She's a very left personality, very resistance to Trump, but is also of the left very clearly. Kind of leans into I'm not like describing her this way in a disparaging way. She self-describes this way. She described the protesters this way as like a wine mom. Do you know this?
Yes.
This kind of description being used for like middle-aged, I think in particularly white women for some reason. So she's self-identifying that way. I'm not stereotyping her as that.
Fine, I get what you're saying. I think most people understand.
This is like Wrath of the Wine Mom or something is going on. This is like Wine Mom Rise Up. Like this is going to be a domestic terrorism category soon. this category of very active on Facebook.
You know what?
Very worked up.
If we're talking about the same group of
stereotype people based on any characteristics, especially race, but this is how she's herself being, she's doing it as
we tend to paint with a broad brush about what middle-aged white Democratic women say or do,
like,
right?
yeah.
They're the ones that want to talk about Harvard, all this being free speech. They're the ones who want to push every single thing for, like these social causes. We always say, oh, who's calling for that? And a lot of people historically on television have pointed to.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting to hear somebody from that category actually having a podcast that's developing that may stray away from the average conversation about where white middle-aged women who may or may not drink wine stand on certain issues. So I welcome her voice into the pool as long as she's not saying crazy stuff that is going to turn people off immediately as she's gaining traction. I think you have to be mindful of some of the content that as you put out content every day, you got to be mindful about things coming out of your mouth, right? Like you can't just, because you don't like somebody, say they deserve to die. And she didn't say that exactly, but she's highlighting or emphasizing.
It's not a very motherly thing to say.
Right, at the same people can criticize you.
Mom.
You open up a can of worms to then be endlessly criticized because everything you say is a contradiction. If you fight for people's rights in any way, it's like, well, you don't fight for the right to live. So, anything you say can be criticized at that point. So I think that she just needs to be mindful. But I do welcome the wine, so if you say self-described white wine mom, to the conversation, because a lot of times I see non-white not wine moms talking about what these people are
non-white people
doing.
Can like wine and be moms.
Be moms too, but I see people speaking on behalf of this swath and group
I feel
that
like
voted for Hillary or said, all the different things, and it's like, well, we'll see.
I feel like it's evolved from the kind of Karen archetype. We were talking about a couple years ago, the like calling the police on like, oh, there's black kids in my neighborhood. Police,
was that also the white wine mom?
I feel like these are related concepts. You don't agree with what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Karen, the stereotype.
Yeah, I know. I don't know that the Karen was also the lady who was like, I'm with her. Because that's what I'm getting when I think the white mom, I'm thinking about the woman who's in the show, I'm with her. When
it's like a pretend
I don't know that's also
who's
a Karen.
Secretly racist is the thing, but...
Well, that was like the lady in Central Park.
Right. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
but I don't know if that
equals
equals up with this Bravo star and they're the same person. I don't want to miscategorize her. I don't know her that well to say if she's also similar to that woman. I hope not. Because that to me is a bunch of garbage if you are.
Private security, a gated security kind of community thing.
Well, she's all over your timeline now, so
I guess we can find out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to see, and I'll follow her now.
Her and I sit down for a beer or for a Chardonnay, more likely. I'm a red wine drinker, so it's...
I kind of stopped drinking wine. I'm more old-fashioned, so I just get right into it these days.
Yeah, cocktails are good. We have cocktails.
All right, we have a lot more to talk about. Stay with us on Rising.